Let's have one more practical exercise on how to develop the stakeholder register. This practical session focuses on applying the theoretical knowledge to create a stakeholder register. By using the ITTOs that we have learned, you will learn how to identify, analyze, and document the stakeholders in a structured format tailored for a project need. The goal of this exercise is to simulate the process of creating stakeholder register for a sample project. And this involves identifying the stakeholders, analyzing their roles and influence, and finally documenting the findings in line with the PMP standards. The key inputs that we are going to utilize to complete this exercise, including the project charter, which provides the initial list of the stakeholders. We have also the EFFs, or the enterprise environmental factors, which highlights the external factors that influence the project. Finally, we'll use the OPAs, including the templates or guidelines and lessons learned, which offers standardized, let's say, format and inform your approach. The tools that we are going to utilize to produce the stakeholder register as a key output, key tools here we are going to use is data gathering techniques, such as the interviews and brainstorming sessions. The next tool here is the analytical tools like the Power Interest Grid and Stakeholder Cube. A very important skill here, your interpersonal skills, including the active listening and facilitation, to ensure an effective engagement with these stakeholders. So the steps that we are going to follow, it's first, we'll start by identifying the stakeholders based on the project information, which was provided by the project charter. And then we'll analyze their roles, interests, influence, and expectations. Finally, we'll document the findings in a structured stakeholder register format. So for this exercise, consider a project to launch an e-commerce platform. Stakeholders include internal teams, vendors, end users, and regulatory bodies. And your task is to identify, analyze, and document these stakeholders in the stakeholder register. So to start with the stakeholder identification, let's begin by, let's say, meetings or brainstorming potential stakeholders and categorizing them as the internal or external, let's say, stakeholders. And that internal stakeholders include, in our case, the internal team members or the executive levels that have an interest on the project. The external stakeholders can include the vendors or the end users and the regulatory bodies. So let's document these roles and relevance to the project based on the given scenario. The next step here we said is that we have to analyze these stakeholders. So analyzing the stakeholders using the tools like the Power Grid Interest. In our example, we might have the end users has a high impact and a high interest on the project, let's say, outcomes, which we have to consider their influence level on the project, which we need to tailor our, let's say, approaches to develop, for example, a responsive e-commerce platform to meet their needs. So we say that using the power interest grid to evaluate the stakeholder influence and interest, and this step helps to prioritize the stakeholders and tailor the engagement strategies to their needs. Finally, we'll document these findings that we have concluded based on our stakeholder identification and analysis. So this document analysis can be considered as a structured stakeholder register that you might use one of these OPAs that is used in your organization, and will include the critical details like the roles, interests, and influence levels, and ensures that the format is accessible for the team use for later stages by the project. Key takeaways that we have learned on practicing on this example. So, in this exercise demonstrated the importance of identifying and analyzing the stakeholders using the ITTOs. A well-prepared stakeholder register serves as the foundation for effective stakeholder engagement and the project success.